I have often said that men are built physically the way we are, by and large, not to compete athletically or to boast in our strength, but to work hard, to fight, and to take a beating, especially on behalf of the most vulnerable and the marginalized. Hi, my name is Mike Hatch, and welcome to Hatch Tags, where our goal is to encourage men to step out of the dark and live empowered by the light of the gospel. You can learn more about this at empoweredmanhood.com. I took some time off recently, but man, I can't stay silent. This global crisis and everything that comes with it has caused my heart to swell for all the men out there who are desperately struggling right now. As many of you know, I'm a men's pastor at Orchard Hill Church in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, where I would normally be meeting with men nearly every day. Of course, face-to-face meetings have ceased, and our whole church has moved online, which has been a blessing. I'm really grateful that God positioned our church to have such influence during this time of great need. At the same time, though, I'm concerned for the men of our church, as well as men all over the world. So I want to be a voice of encouragement and perspective during this crisis. The pitfalls are many, and I'll get to those later in this video and in future videos, but the potential is immense. I'm a glass half full kind of person, if you haven't figured that out already, which can be very frustrating for my realist friends. But men, we are presented with an unprecedented opportunity that few people in history get. Think about some of the men who are considered the greatest men in history. Men like Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther, or the Apostle Paul, all took their place in history because of unprecedented social struggle, unspeakable tragedy, extreme moral injustice, and local and global crisis. I have often said that men are built physically the way we are, by and large, not to compete athletically or to boast in our strength, but to work hard, to fight, and to take a beating, especially on behalf of the most vulnerable and the marginalized. In that sense, we were designed for abuse. This is why men who are abusive to others are so repulsive, because it is not just an abdication of God's purpose for them, it's a complete perversion of God's original intent. Instead of using our strength to protect, we use it to abuse and exploit for our own twisted, sinful desires. Men, this is our time. Unfortunately, more men are interested in shirking their responsibility, hedging their bets, and indulging in fantasy as a way of escape from realities we feel incapable of dealing with. This world is full of men in hiding. We're afraid to step into the light of the truth because we've been convinced of the lies that reside in the dark, that we're incompetent, that we don't have what it takes, and that we're unworthy of love because of our sin. So we hide our weaknesses and insecurities because we can't bear the thought of being found out as the imposters we think we are. Now, men all over the world are having to work from home, maybe for the first time. There is no escape or reprieve from what many men feel is the critical glare of their wives. Or like one video I saw recently on social media, we realize we don't know our own kids. In some cases, everything we've been running from is now pressed in close, as many of us are confined at home. So, what do? How do we, as men, embrace this God-given opportunity, especially if fear has driven our lives for so long now? We live empowered by the light. So I'm going to talk more about this in future videos, and I would especially encourage you to check out my previous video, Live Empowered by the Light, to get an idea of what I'm talking about. The next video I'm going to post will be a talk I gave at a local men's breakfast where I share a little about my own personal battle with the darkness. And in that message, I talk about how men who are empowered by the light are known by God, grown by God, and owned by God. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you'll be notified when I post that video tomorrow. I will also be doing more current cultural commentary because I think it's so important to identify the false narratives that we believe as men. Instead, we must be reliant on God for the true narrative, His narrative. That's what we find in the light of the gospel, His narrative. So men, who's with me? Jesus said, "If anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." This is an unprecedented opportunity, men, for us to lose our lives for the sake of the gospel, to muster everything about who God created us to be as men for His redemptive purposes. Man, God is on the move, and our families need us to be men. Our churches need us to be men. Our communities need us to be men. The world needs us to be men. Look, I'm just like you, trying to learn as I go, healing from past woundedness, struggling with sin and tripwires that are constantly sabotaging my efforts, and battling regularly with insecurities. But if there's one thing I've been convinced of, it's that God is good. He is faithful, and He is working on behalf of His people. So, what do you think? Are these struggles I described a part of your experience recently? What does that look like for you? And how are you addressing it? I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments below so we can all glean from each other. Until next time, join me in this journey, men, during this unprecedented time in history as we learn together to live empowered by the light.